5,962,129 Jews died in the Holocaust. That is according to an online statistic from www.historyplace.com. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that number. That is nearly 6 million people. Nowadays, that is about the population of a smaller state, such as Maryland. But back then, that was over 2/3 the entire Jewish population living in Europe at the time. This, according to an article on histories1900s.about.com. My name is Kaleena and today I'm going to be talking to you about the Holocaust. I'd like to begin with a brief history. On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler is appointed Chancellor of Germany by then-President Paul von Hindenburg. Over the next year, Hitler worked to rid of democracy and gain complete control over Germany, which he did by 1934. Hitler despised the Jews, and even went as far as using Charles Darwin's evolution theory to state that Jews were the weaker members of society, and thus were destined to become extinct. Soon, Jews began to lose common privileges, such as leaving their homes after certain hours, going to certain shops, or even having a radio. After attacks on Jews began to get more violent, people started fighting back. A 17-year-old boy shot and killed a secretary in the German assembly, which led to the famous Night of the Broken Glass, commonly known as Kristallnacht. During these two nights, Nazis attacked Jewish residences, businesses, and began burning synagogues. After many beatings and brutal murders, over 30,000 Jews were captured and taken to concentration camps. By 1940, Jews were confined to ghettos, which were Jewish-only neighborhoods that didn't have enough food, water, living spaces, toilets, supplies, etc. Many people died from disease and starvation during this time. In June of 1941, Hitler puts the final solution into action, which is his plan to completely eradicate the Jews. This began with a killing group that was formed called the Einsatzgruppen, who would line Jews up in a row and shoot them dead. Over the course of a year, it was expected that they had killed over 1.3 million Jews this way. On January 20th, 1942, the Wannsee Conference is held by government officials to create and enforce a formal plan of action to kill the Jews. Though many kinds of people were ultimately targeted, Jews received special treatment, which meant that they were specifically killed by gassing. In the spring of 1942, the Nazis had established 6 death camps in Poland and began having Jews transported there by cattle cars. Over the next few years, millions upon millions of Jews were killed. Many by gassing, others by disease, starvation, death marches, which is when the Nazis tried to relocate the Jews to rebel against resistance, forcing these incredibly weakened groups to walk hundreds of miles, or being worked to death as laborers in the camps. They continued against resistance, such as people trying to escape from camps, or even the infamous Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in July through September of 1942, which became the largest revolt at the time. The Jews in the ghetto used weapons and homemade bombs to resist the Germans. While their fight was noble and strong, the Germans ultimately conquered and had completely wiped out the remaining ghettos by May 16th. Slowly, the camps began to be liberated, with most of them being liberated by early 1945. The survivors were held in zones of occupation until a place could be found for them, since the majority of their homes had been destroyed. It took over a decade to get all of the remaining survivors put into new homes. On January 27, 2015, survivors of the Holocaust gathered at the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration/death camp to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the liberation of the camps. World leaders came and gave speeches while everyone stood and remembered the nearly 6 million people that had died. The Holocaust was a time in our history that should never be forgotten. It is something that people should always be reminded of, so that we can remember what we are capable of doing to each other, and so we can remember to never let anything happen like this again. If you guys are interested in learning more about the Holocaust, learning about true stories, this weekend the theater here is holding a production called And Then They Came For Me, Remembering the World of Anne Frank. It's about 3 families and their association with Anne Frank and what it was like for each of them to go through the Holocaust. I'm in it. Chris Bowser is in it as well, so if you guys are interested, see us this weekend. Thank you.
We're moving now to the question and answer period. Do you have questions for Kaleena?
I didn't get to the time and the date for the play.
You'll take a start.
Any other questions?
Interesting.
So would it be safe to say that the word ghetto came from this era in time? This is when that term originated.
To be honest, I wondered that myself and did not ultimately look it up, but I feel like that's
I
probably
think
where.
so too. That was great. Thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Let's give her another hand.